Good morning, everybody. Happy Sunday. Hope you're all doing well. So, last weekend, well, actually, during the week, we talked about what are my capabilities for 400, 800, 3K, and 5K if I run this for a mile. And we went from 8 minutes all the way down to 4 minutes. Okay. Today, I'm going to talk about what training paces should I be at if I'm there for a mile as well, so that you know if you're training in the right zones and so on and so forth. And again, this is something I did about 5 years ago on this channel, but I had this old school whiteboard with markers. It was really hard to see, so I wanted to do it again today with slides so you can read a little bit easier here and again. So we're just going to talk about what are my estimated training paces based on 1 mile, if you test them at a mile. Okay, you're on the track. And I always encourage folks to test yourself after about 6 to 8 weeks of basic base running, because it'll give you an idea of what folks' accurate fitness levels are at that point. Okay, and it also tells you who slows down the most, who slows down the least if they go out too fast, based on who's not ready. So it'll give you an idea of who your more distance oriented people might be, your middle distance oriented might be, your longer sprint or oriented folks might be. So it'll tell you a lot of intel. And miles is essentially a perfect distance to do this, right? So again, we're gonna break this down. What pace should I be training at if I run this for a mile? We're going to go from 8 minutes all the way down to 4 minutes. Okay, and if you're a coach or an athlete, and again, you're not subscribed to this channel, make sure that right now. If you enjoy the content, then also have to hit the like button to come back as well. I greatly appreciate it. I do this every Sunday, and I open it up for questions. So if you have any questions at any point in time, put them in the comments. And I'll answer them live time. Okay, so let's get right into this. 8 minutes per mile. So let's just say you run 8 minutes. The paces for your easy runs about 11:40, 11:20 per mile. Steady runs 11:20 to 11 minutes. Okay. Now, before I go any further, there should be more than just easy runs and workouts. Steady runs are important too. Easy runs are essentially, let's just say, an easy day after a race, or an easy day for like a semi-long run day, and on a day after a workout at an easy pace. Then the steady run is slightly faster than easy run pace, and it's split a slightly shorter distance. Okay, it's important to not leave fitness on the table. So easy runs and workouts is not going to be enough, or easy runs and races is not going to be enough. That's why I have steady pace in there too. Okay, your pace for your tempo runs here are 9:08 to 9:06 per mile. Threshold and intervals. Okay, we do 1K reps, 1200 reps, and mile reps. All right. So, and you know what? Let me take this banner off for a second here, because we can't see on the bottom. There we go. Okay. Now, your threshold pace for 1K is 536 to 535. 1200, 641, 642. Mile reps, 856 to 858. Okay. This is repeats at threshold pace with a 1 minute recovery, which is about 10 seconds faster per mile than your tempo run pace. This allows you to get in something like 5 times a K, 4 times 1200, 4 times a mile, and so on and so forth. And you can build towards that over time. But this is the type of stuff that's going to help you get to 740, 720, 7 minutes, and so on. Okay. Your interval paces are essentially a 5K pace, 503 to 502 for 1K reps, 603 to 604 for the 1200s, 806 to 804 for the 1K reps. For the mile reps. Okay. Not that much faster than your mile PB. Okay, so again, you could slow that down 8:15, 8:12, 8:14, 8:16 if you need to, but this is the pace at that point you should be able to kind of get close to. Short reps, we do 200s, 400s, and 600s. A lot of this is at close to mile pace or faster. So 200 would be 55, 56, 400s and 150 to 152, and 600s 247, 248. Now 740 per mile. You see the progression. The steady run pace for the one before that becomes the easy run pace here. So it's 11 to 11:20 for easy runs. Okay, and it's 11 to 10:40 for steady runs. And if anybody has any questions, you put them right in the comments. Tempo runs here, 850 to 852 per mile. Your threshold reps, and these are 1 minute recoveries. 525 to 526 per K, 630 to 631 per 1200s, 840 to 842 per mile reps. It's about a mile slower. I mean, a minute per mile slower than your mile pace at this point. Okay, which is about, like I said, 8 to 10 seconds faster per mile than your tempo runs, but broken up into pieces. But it still serves as VO2 max development. necessary VO2 max development. 457 to 458 are your interval paces for 1Ks, 553 to 554 for 1200s, 754 to 756 for the mile, for mile reps. No more than 3. It's about 15 seconds slower than your mile PR, which is why you can do it when you're 8-minute mile. You can do 814, 816 if you need to. Okay, your short rep paces in here are 43. Excuse me, that should say 54, 53, not 43. My apologies. 53 to 54 for 200s, 146, 148 for 400s, 142, 241 to 242 for 600s. Okay, those are the paces. Now, let's go to the next slide. 7:20 to 7 minutes, and you will see the progression over time. This is why I'm doing every 20 seconds. Okay, so you can see the progression of work. So if I'm at here, what do I need to do to get here, and so on. Because at some point, your 7-minute mile is going to feel like 7:20s, right? As you get fitter, your easy runs are going to get faster, and your steady runs are going to get faster. Your training runs for everything are going to get faster. But it's important to let your fitness happen naturally before you get ahead of yourself. In some cases, you'll be able to handle this stuff, and in which case you'll then modify accordingly. But these are the types of things here that are important to set yourself up. And these are the types of things that are based on the video that I did earlier this week, right? What are your 5K capabilities, your 3K capabilities, 800 and 400, based on what you run for the mile? Okay. So now it's 7:20 per mile, easy runs, 11 minutes to 10:40 per mile. Steady runs, 10:40 to 10:20 per mile. Okay. It's still 3 minutes per mile slower than your PR mile. Just keep that in mind. Tempo runs, 8:32 to 8:34, about 70 seconds slower than your mile PR. Threshold paces, 5:13 to 5:14 for the 1Ks, 6:16 to 17 for the 1200s, 8:22 to 8:24 per the mile reps. And again, like I said, 5 to 6 times a K, 1 minute recovery. 4 to 5 times 1200, 1 minute recovery. 3 to 4 times a mile, 1 minute recovery. And you could progress from 1Ks, 1200s to 1600s as you get fitter. You spend more time in the threshold zone. That's a sign of your fitness improving. Okay, this is a good way of tangibly tracking it. Interval paces, again, most of the stuff is a 5K pace, okay, or close to it. 449 to 450 per Ks, 547 to 548 per 1200s, 742 to 744 per mile reps. Okay, same type of volume, 5 to 6 times a K, 4 to 5 times 1200, 3 to 4 times a mile. Okay, and short reps, 51 to 52 for 200s, 142 to 144 for 400s, and 235 to 236 for 600s. Now, before we get to 7 minutes a mile, we have questions here. Difference between interval and threshold. Intervals, so easiest way to decipher it, McKinney intervals in this regard here. So the intervals are essentially a 5K pace, right? And you're going to have a longer recovery. So anything that's at 5K pace or longer, let's just say you do the 1K recovery, the 1K repeats 5 to 6 times a K. You can start at 3-minute recovery and work your way down to 2 as you get fitter. Threshold paces are at slower paces, but they're a 1-minute recovery. Okay, that's the initial hit of VO2 max development. 5K pace and 3K pace is a more event-specific VO2 max development. That's the stuff that's really going to help you get ready to run longer races like the 3K and 5K, and you can kind of mix and match the types of workouts that you do here. And you can say now, this gives you an idea of, okay, if I'm going early season threshold or early season tempo, so I'm building towards 20 minutes tempo, and I'm going to build towards 20 minutes of threshold stuff like 5 times a K or whatever, right? 4 times a K. And I'm going to do the same thing with intervals, but the rest periods are going to be different. So threshold is good to do early season. It's also good to do race week if you're running a shorter race. It doesn't take much out of your legs. And you can also add volume to it. You can go over distance with threshold work. You can even add some speed development on the back end of it too. So whereas interval stuff, this is a good workout to do the week prior to a race. So let's just say you're going to run the 5K next Saturday. You do those 1K repeats about 10 days out, or those 1200 repeats about 10 days. That'll give you a good idea of your readiness for the 5K next weekend. Let me know if that makes sense, Multi-Kenny. Now let's get right back to it. 7 minutes per mile. Your easy run pace is 10:40 to 10:20. Steady run pace, 10:20 to 10 minutes. Tempo run, Tempo runs, 812 to 814 per mile. Threshold reps, 5 minutes to 5:01 for 1Ks, 6:01 to 6:02 for 1200s, 8:02 to 8:04 per mile. And again, remember, threshold pace is with 1 minute recoveries. You progress from shorter reps to longer reps as you get fitter, as your athletes get fitter. If you think they can handle the longer reps, you give them the longer reps. But you may have some athletes who are ready for the longer stuff. You may have some athletes who are not ready for the longer stuff, and that's okay. It's totally okay. This just gives you an idea of what the paces to lock into based on where they're at in the mile at this point. Okay, to help them get to the next milestone, which we'll get to in a second. Interval reps, 437 to 438 for Ks, 533, 534 for 1200s, 724 to 726 per miles. And again, the 1200s, I mean, the 1Ks, you could start at rest 3 minutes and go down to rest 2 minutes over time. The 1200s, you could start at rest 4 minutes and go down to rest 3 minutes over time. The mile reps, you could start at rest 5 minutes and go down to rest 3 minutes over time, as you see fit. Okay. The short reps, I'll get to the question in a second, 49 to 50 for 200s, 139 to 140 for 400s, and 229 to 230 for 600s. The pace is all in line. It's just pretty much the same pace, just getting longer with the reps as you get fitter. Okay. And no more than 1.5 miles to 2 miles worth of volume at mile pace. Volume, the amount of volume that you do at the certain paces is important. Just like I don't encourage folks to go more than 4 miles worth of volume or building towards 4 miles worth of volume at 5K pace, or no more than 3 miles worth of volume at 3K pace. Okay, over time though. Now the next up is going to be 640 to 620, but we have another question. So interval is faster but long. Yes. Threshold start. Yes. Threshold, and you can go over distance with threshold. Multi-Kenny. It's easier to go. Let me take this off the screen for a second. It's easier to go longer distance with threshold workouts than it is repeat or interval workouts. Okay, but the interval stuff is a more race specific stuff, and that type of stuff I would encourage folks to do the week before a race. Okay, threshold stuff, like I said, you can do early season the week of a race if you don't want to hammer too much, and you can add. It makes it easier to add speed development on the back end of it. So you could do, let's just say you do 5 times the threshold 1,000, 5 times or 6 times the threshold 1,000. 1 minute recovery, and then in the end you take a 4 to 5 minute recovery after the last one. Then you can do some 150s on the back end. It teaches you how to do what? Turnover when your legs are fatigued, which is exactly what it's going to be like at the end of a race, right? Exactly what it's going to be like. So let's get back into it again, folks. If you have questions, put them in the comments. And thank you for the questions, Multi-Kenny. It's always good at getting questions. Sometimes one question leads to more questions. That's totally okay. Just shows that you want to learn. 640 per mile. So an easy run pace for 640 per mile. 1020 to 950. Now we're going to 30-second range per mile. Steady run, 950 to 920 per mile. Okay. Now we're less than 3 minutes. Okay. At a certain threshold, sub 7 minutes, then the range starts to get a little bit bigger. And that means progression runs take you from the high end of your steady run to the low end of, the high end of easy to the low end of steady. So progression runs can start from 1020 and go down to 920. And you have a minute range here. So, but like I said, easy runs and workouts is not enough. Steady pace runs are good as well. Do not leave fitness on the table in training. This is where you can find out a lot about who you are and about how your teammates are. Before going further, we got another question. Morgan, how are you? Oh, we got 2 questions. All right. During tri-season, you got the 550, kind of near the end of the season. Then off season, you got the 525. What should you do now? Heart rate's pretty much. Is your heart rate 180 over rolling hills? That's one question I would ask. Over rolling hills, your heart rate's naturally going to be higher. And are you doing it? Are you recovering enough in between runs? And are you sleeping enough as well? These are definitely questions you want to ask. Asking and give me some more intel. See if I can help you more. Critical velocity. I don't use this intensity, but I hear of it sometimes. Critical velocity between threshold. So another good question. So let me take this off the screen for 1 second here. Okay, before we go on, we're going to continue on 640. But so I have a video on here about tempo, threshold, critical velocity, and all the paces that differ in between the two. Tempo runs is essentially about 80 to 83% of your VO2 max. Threshold is about 83 to 87%. Critical velocity is 87 to 90% of your VO2 max. Okay, you take a little bit longer recovery. Let's just say you take an easy 200-meter jog after you're doing 5 times a K at critical velocity. I have the paces broken down, folks. So if you want to take a look at it, I've got videos on here that talk about the paces between tempo, threshold, and critical velocity, right? So, but they're all serve as VO2 max. But all these things are important to do what? To get you fit enough to stay in races with the faster people, right? And then the turnover work and all the other stuff is going to help you start working on out kicking folks from 200 out, from 400 out, from 600 out. But critical velocity is a good component to add to the training as well. So if you do it intelligently and not go crazy with it. But yeah, critical velocity is another component of VO2 max development, Morgan. Tin Man does a lot of it. Tom Schwartz, I've learned some from him as well. But take a look at, I've got videos on here. If you go back a couple of weeks, I talked about tempo, threshold, and critical velocity and broken down the paces in between them. I encourage you to take a look at it. Me for the whole run. Average, okay, average good sleep. Morgan. Good sleep, okay. Okay. Are you recovering enough? Like, are you doing morning runs and then evening runs and so on? Or are you running consistently throughout the day? Just out of curiosity. Because if you do, VO2 max is going down. What are your, so you're down to 520 now? And I wouldn't, Garmin is not the gospel, okay? It can be helpful, but it's not the gospel. Now with 525, your training paces, and we're gonna get to it. So hang out with us here. You'll see where your training paces are at. We'll see, are you doing speed development in your training? Because speed development is also going to help the paces of the easy runs and the steady runs feel that much easier, right? Keep that in mind. Speed complements endurance. Endurance complements speed. If you have a balanced training program that addresses all of them, then you're putting yourself in a good position always, okay? But if you just do endurance and no speed, or just hard intervals and no endurance, we're leaving some fitness on the table. And why would we want to do that? Okay. So just something to keep in mind. Now let's get back to 640 per mile. Tempo runs, again, easy run 1020, 950, steady run 950 to 920. Tempo run 752 to 754 per mile. Threshold 1Ks 449 to 450. Threshold 1200s 547 to 548. Threshold mile 742 to 744 per mile. Okay. 1 minute recovery is always with threshold. Interval thousands, 440, and that should say 425. My apologies there too. Should say 425 to 426. That's on me. 425 to 426 per K, 517 to 518 per 1200s, 706 to 704 per mile reps. And again, you could start the long recovery and work your way down over time, but it is faster paces than thresholds with longer recoveries. Short reps, 47 to 48 for your 200s. Okay. 134 to 136 for your 400s. And 223 to 224 for your 600s. Okay. Because again, this stuff is mile pace or faster than mile pace. Okay. With adequate recoveries as you see fit. Now, 620 per mile. Easy runs, 920 to 850. Steady runs, 850 to 820. Okay. Now we're going like 2 minutes slower for your mile PR from easy to steady, as opposed to 3 minutes in the earlier slides. Tempo 730 to 732 per mile. Threshold 1K 434 to 435. 1200s 530 to 531. Threshold miles 721 to 722. Again, 1 minute recoveries. you go as you see fit. And the best thing to do with threshold stuff is to build from shorter to longer reps. You can even start at 800s and build you towards thousands, build towards 1200s. It's up to you to decide. Okay. But I would stick with, until you're down to under 5 minutes per mile, I'd probably stick with 1K reps and 1200s for the most part, even 800s, and build towards 4 miles worth of volume. Okay. Interval paces, 412 to 413 for your 1Ks, 504 to 505 for 1200s, 647, 648 per mile reps. Short reps here, 45 to 46 for 200s, 131 to 132 for 400s, 217 to 218 for 600s. Okay. And now you're doing, let's just say you do 2 sets of 8 building towards 2 sets of 8, 12, 200s. Okay. Or 2 sets of 400s, or 6 or 8 time consecutive 400s. It's up to you to decide. Okay. You can build towards 8 consecutive. You can go 2 sets of 3, then 6, then 2 sets of 4, then 8. You can build towards 8 over time, because sometimes 8 consecutively is tough depending on the recovery. And again, the recovery here, let's just say you start at 2 minutes, you work your way down to 90 seconds over time. You can do 8 times of 400 at a 90-second recovery at mile pace. That's a good indicator of your mile capability. Okay, particularly in high school as well. Then you get 217, 218s per your 600. So you can do, let's just say, 4 times the 600 with a 230 recovery, 1-to-1 work, 1-to-1 ratio. Okay, work to rest. Do 4 times 600. You can get to 5 times 600 at that pace. That's a good sign of improving your mile as well. Okay, so just a thought. Now, next slide. 6 minutes, excuse me, to 540. Easy run pace, 920 to 850. Steady run pace, 850 to 820. Tempo, 710 to 712 per mile. Building towards 20 minutes, in some cases 25 minutes, depending on what you have in front of you, what you're working with, capabilities, and so on, and experience and age. Threshold 1Ks, 422 to 423. Threshold 1200s, 514 to 515. And threshold miles, 7 minutes to 702. Okay. Intervals, and my apologies there for the 2 4s. 359 to 4 minutes for the 1K reps. 448 to 449 for the 1200 meters. And 624 to 626 for the mile reps. Then you have your short reps, 43 to 44 for 200s, 127 to 128 for 400s, 211 to 212 for 600s. 540 per mile, easy run pace, 850 to 820, steady, 820 down to 750. Okay, tempo run, 648 to 650 per mile. Threshold thousands, 407 to 408. Threshold 1200s, 459 to 5 minutes. Threshold miles, 638 to 640. Okay, and it's pretty much locked in at the same pace, whether you go from 1Ks, 1200s to miles, and so on. Okay, and then you got your interval paces, 347 to 348 for 1Ks, 435 to 436 for 1200s, 608 to 606 to 608 per miles. Okay, then your short reps, your short repeats, 200s at 41.42, 400s at 123 to 124, 83 or 84, and then 600s and 205 to 206. All right, now let's get down to 520 in 5 minutes. Okay, 520, easy run pace, say 820 to 750, steady run pace, 750 to 720. I'll get to your question in a second. Tempo run, 626 to 628 per mile. And like I said, 20 to 25 minutes. You lock into that. That's consecutive. So you build towards that over time. Okay, threshold 1Ks, 353, 354. Threshold 1200s, 441 to 42. Threshold miles, 616 to 618 per mile. Intervals, 1K reps, 335 to 336. 1200s, 417 to 418. Mile repeats, 546 to 548. And then short repeats here, 39 to 40 for 200s, 79 to 80 for 400s, and 201 to 202 for 600s. Okay, pretty much even across the board. Now let's get to the question. You keep going out too fast, and so that's it. Okay, so it's funny. I've been talking about this recently. One of the things that you can do is, and I have videos on here about bookend tempos. Bookend tempos simulates what? Going out like a bat out of hell. This happens a lot in cross-country races. People go out like crazy because they're going from a wide path to a narrow path, right? They got to establish position, and that's normal. They go out way too fast, but in a lot of cases, a lot of athletes are not ready to recover from that pace. They're going to the fast, go out hard, and then settle in, and then keep racing. A lot of people fall apart. So that's something you can build into your training. Let's just say a bookend tempo. You do a 300-meter rep at 3K pace. Take a minute recovery. Then you do your tempo. Simulate settling in. Then you take another 1 minute recovery, and then you do another 300 at the end at 3K pace or faster. That simulates going hard, going out hard, settling in, and finishing hard. And then you do that same workout, but cut the recovery from a minute to 45 seconds on both ends. Then you do it again, cut the recovery from 45 to 30 on both ends. And if you can get to the point where you can do that workout without any rest, that'll give you a really, really good idea. That'll prepare you extremely well for going out very hard in races, settling in and being able to finish hard. Because a lot of folks go out way too hard and they're not ready for what's happening next, especially if you're racing in the rolling hills, especially if it's Van Cortlandt Park in New York. You go out way too hard, which a lot of people do. The middle of the race is where the back hills are. People are not ready for that, right? So you've got to set yourself up. And if you have the ability to go out hard and then do a rolling tempo, you can do a rolling tempo, right? And you can do the same thing with threshold reps, right? You can do a hard 300 or 400, rest a minute. Then you do your threshold workout 5 or 6 times a K, 1 minute recovery. Okay. Then in the end, you do another hard to 3 to 400 meter rep at 3K pace or faster. Again, simulate what races happen to turn out to be, right? And a lot of times you go out hard because you have to, you settle in, and then you try to finish hard. But are you fit enough to do that? Are you ready? That still remains to be seen, right? Where it's different on the track. People can go out hard, but it's easier to settle in because you can track yourself, right? The size of the track does not change every lap. It's the same thing. It's easier to move around people. You could track every 200s. Am I running at a certain pace? And generally, track races tend to be a little bit more tactical than cross-country races, right? Especially at the uphills, people take advantage of the downhills, people take advantage of the uphills. There's constant changes in intensity of cross-country races. So I encourage you to put that to consider that as well. So if you go, and that's what I mean, if you go out too fast in races, right? And if you want to do, also you do your, if you want to break and take a look at the capabilities for 20 minutes and 21 and so on and so forth. But 21 minutes is just over 6 minutes per mile, right? So you want to break 21. If you're going to do a workout, always start with a hard mile rep at 6 minute pace as to start your workout, and then do the workout afterward. And let's just say the workout is 6 times 800. Instead of doing 6 times 800, do a mile at that pace, and then do 4 times 800. Okay, so again, prepares you for what happens in these races. If you go out too hard, you've got to be ready to go out hard and continue to go on, right? And then you can reverse it. You can do the 800s and you can do the long rep at the end. Okay, but there should always be, you could always put in a long rep at your goal pace at any point in time in the workout. So that's something that can help you in training too. Ohio, most courses we're at, rest of the season is super flat. 300 meter repeats is fine too. I mean, you could even do 300s after a tempo, or to bookend the tempo. Like I said, you do a hard 300, right? And then you take a minute recovery, right? And then you do a tempo run. Take a 1 minute recovery, and then you do another 300. That's going to simulate exactly what happens in races, going out too hard. But if you do it this way, then you're settling into your tempo pace and then coming back and finishing strong. You get used to what happens in races. And then all of a sudden, you're going to be much better off in the middle of these races after going out too hard. So you can prepare yourself for this type of stuff in training, if that makes sense. You can even do 300 meter repeats at 3K pace, or even start at 3K pace and go down the mile pace. Not every workout needs to be long, okay? But you can even do a mile. Let's just say you do a hard mile at 6 minutes, right? And then take a 5 minute recovery, 6 minute, whatever. And you can do some 300s at 3K pace. That's a good workout to get you ready for 5K cross country too, especially if the course is flat. You do a hard long rep and then do some 300s at 3K pace, right? 10 of them or whatever. That's a good workout too. So it gives you some ideas on how to maneuver in your training to set yourself up for success. So let's get back to this. Okay. So 520 again, 820 to 750 for easy, 750 to 720 for steady. Then we've got 626 to 628 for tempo runs. 40 on the corner. Do more than one race per week. Is there? No, it's. I mean, it's not by me. It's not recommended by me. You'll learn more about yourself and more about your athletes in training than you will in racing. One race a week is plenty. I mean, one race every other week is ideal for me. But you're welcome, we. So it's really, and you'll come across some states and some counties that race their athletes twice per week for I don't know what reason. Sometimes they'll say, well, we're just going to do this as a tempo workout. Well, that to me, it just, you get more value in a workout, staying home and training and doing a better workout than going in to jog a race. I don't see any value in that. And again, like I said, this is me. I can't speak for all coaches. I have no interest in being a dual meet champion in September. I want to get my athletes ready to run fast in October and November when it counts the most. That's it, period. I do not care about September, and I do not. I don't need my back pat. I need my ego stroked and all that type of stuff. Don't need any of it. This is about you guys and gals, not me. That's why I'm doing this stuff. So, again, it's a matter of experience and opinion, but I do not recommend racing more than once per week. But again, that's up to some folks will disagree. And that's okay. So back to this 520 per mile. Your tempo runs at 626, 628. Threshold reps 353 to 354 per K. 441 to 442 per 1200. 616 to 618 per mile. Intervals 335 to 336. Okay. For 1K. And again, if you multiply 336 times 5, that's 18 minutes flat. So at a 520 per mile, you should be running under 18 minutes or close to it for 5K. Okay, that's another way of looking at it too. 417 to 418 for 1200s, 546 to 548 per mile. Right? Short repeats, 39 to 40 for 200s, 129, 79.80 for 400s, 101, 201 to 202 for 600s. Now 5 minutes per mile. 750 to 720 for easy runs, 720 to 650 for steady runs, 604 to 606 for tempo runs. Threshold 1Ks, 341 to 342, which is sub 6 minute pace. Now, 427 to 428 for 1200s, also sub 6 minute pace. At some point, it'll become a little bit faster than a minute slower than per mile. Okay. And this is right around here. We're approaching it. Then your threshold mile reps, 556 to 558 per mile. Okay. Intervals, 325 to 326 per 1K. 405 to 406 for 1200s. 526 to 528 per mile. Repeats. Then short reps, 37 to 38 for 200s. 74.75 for 400s. 152 to 153 for 600s. Pretty much on 5 minute pace. Right there. Next up, 440 and 420. We're going to go all the way down to 4 minutes. Easy runs 720 to 650. Steady runs 650 to 620. Tempo runs 542 to 544 per mile. Okay. Threshold 327, 338, 328 for 1200 for 1Ks. 407 to 408 for 1200s. 532 to 534 per mile reps. I mean, now you're looking at like 50 seconds faster per mile, 50 to 55 seconds faster per mile than your mile PR. Slower, I should say. Then intervals, 311 and 312 for 1K. So right now at a 440, you should be hovering right around 16 flat for 5K. So something to keep in mind. Okay, as you go 20 seconds or so per mile, you should be close to a minute or so for 5K as well, and 40 seconds or so for 3K. So 311 to 312 for 1K, 349 to 350 for 1200s, and 506 to 508 for threshold, or interval miles. Okay, and then your short reps, 34 to 35 for 200s, 69 to 70 for 400s, and 144 to 145 for 600s. It's pretty much right on 438 to 440 per mile pace. Okay, before we go to 420, got another question. How good? Multi-Can, you're training in 800, 1500s to prepare for college. You're scheduled for him to do a tempo every week with 300 meter strides at the end. Tempo is 20 minutes with 2x300s. That's fine, Multi-Kenny. Yeah, I would alternate. I mean, you can if your 850 runner, is your 850 runner running cross country, or is your 850 not running cross country? So what you could also do, you could do a tempo 1 week, then a threshold workout the following week, and then a critical velocity workout the week after, and then add some 200s or 300s on the back end of it too. Then they're hitting different paces for VO2 max development. You're getting faster, and then once you get this critical velocity, then you can go back to the tempo run again and repeat that cycle a couple of times. And then you can see now how we're doing on tempo pace. Are they recovering better, right? Can I cut the rest from tempo to 300s, right? You want to run collegiately and late, so no cross country. So that's it. I would do Multi-Kenny. So I totally get it. Right now, I would do tempo 1 week, threshold the following week, and critical velocity the week after, and then repeat that cycle. If that makes sense. Transfer into school after the semester. Okay. That cycle right there would get him fit. And again, without having to do hard repeats. This is a good way of developing his VO2 max and getting him fit and ready for college. Multi-K, if that makes sense. Let me know if it does. So back to 420 per mile now. Easy runs, 650 to 620. Steady runs, 620 to 550. Tempos, 520 to 522 per mile. Threshold reps, 313 to 314 per K. 353 to 354 per 1200. 510 to 512 per mile. Okay. Interval reps, that should say 258 to 259. I can give these typos here. 258 to 259. So at sub 420, you should be hovering around 15 flat or faster. 258 to 259 per K, 335 to 336 per 1200, 447 to 448 per mile. But all with 1 minute recoveries. No, excuse me, sorry, equal recoveries, or a little bit less than equal recoveries. Short reps, 31 to 32 for 200s, 64 to 65 for 400s, 136 to 137 for 600s. So again, like I said, just to clarify, threshold reps are at a slightly slower pace. That's VO2 max initial, 1 minute recovery. Interval reps are a faster pace, but with a little bit more recovery. Okay, almost at 1-to-1, but the more 1-to-1 should be the short reps on the back end here on the bottom. Okay, you can contact via email to go over his training plan in more detail. Multi-Ken, you reach out to me. I'll be more than happy to help, man. I'll be more than happy to help. I want to make sure if he wants to run in college, I want to make sure he's ready to go. Now let's finish this off with a 4-minute mile. Easy run pace 620 to 550. Steady runs 550 to 520. So now the progression runs are like 620 to 520. Some people even start slower, and that's fine. That's fine. Okay. Tempo runs 5 minutes to 502 per mile. Threshold reps 3 minutes to 302 per K. 335 to 336 per 1200. 448 to 450 per mile. Okay. Interval reps 245 to 246 per K. 320 and 321 for 1200s. You're hovering right now around 430 pace or 428 per mile pace. And then you have 426 to 428 per mile for intervals. Then your short reps, 29 to 30 for 200s, 59 to 60 for 400s, 129 to 130 for 600s. Okay. It's pretty much all at mile pace. So those are the training paces. Easy, steady, tempo, threshold, intervals, repeats. And I encourage you to take a look at the video that I did the other day with your capabilities, because I line it up with 8 minutes all the way down to 4 minutes, and now you can put the pieces together. My athletes are my athletes here at 540. Okay, what are the capabilities? And you see how the capabilities line up with the training paces, right? It's designed to be that way. It's designed to prepare your athletes to get closer to the before. If your athletes if you happen to be closer to the 3K and the 5K than you are the 400 and 800 based on the mile, that's assigned to work on speed development. If you're closer to the 4 and the 8 than you are the 3K and the 5K, that's assigned to work on aerobic development or aerobic conditioning like VO2 max, tempos, all right? But this is why I talk about a well-balanced training program and why it's so important. Because if you have it all within, even if it's a 2-week cycle, whatever it might be, you're setting yourself up for success. You're setting your athletes up for success. And if you're training in the right pace ranges based on your current fitness, then you're making sure that if you have a big team, that everybody's training in the right pace zones. Because like I said, you can have everybody do the same workout with the same recovery, but that's, how hard that's going to be if you don't start them in different places and so on and so forth. If you start everybody at the same time in the same place, there are people who are going to get less recovery than the other folks, and then it's going to be kind of a confusing thing. So this is where training groups are so important. It allows you to break it up. You can start this group 20 seconds ahead of that group. That way you can finish with that group and have the other group coming in, and so on and so forth. It allows you to tangibly track everybody effectively, the people that you need to train that track. And this also helps your 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 runners in cross country get closer to the runners at the front. Because ideally, the most gains you're going to get for the most part in cross country are going to happen in the back of the pack, right? The back of the pack people get faster, right? And that's when you can go from a 1 minute spread down to 45 seconds, 45-second spread down to 30 seconds, right? And ideally, the least amount of points in cross country wins. The tighter the spread wins, right? This is where pace ranges for appropriate pace ranges for everybody is so important, because it helps the back end of your cross country team get towards the front. Okay, does anybody have any questions about this? Does this make sense? Okay, I'll leave it open for another question or two. have another minute and then I'll wrap it up. Let you all go. Multi-Kenny, you know how to reach out to me. For those that don't know, for those that, put this here. This is my email address. Okay. That's my email address if anybody has any questions. Critical velocity is a VO2 max, a component of VO2 max development. Okay. And essentially the ratio tempo runs are about 80 to 83% of your VO2 max. Threshold reps are about 83, 87% of VO2 max. Critical velocity is about 87 to 90% of VO2 max. So it allows you to go gradually faster, yet staying in that VO2 max zone so that you're not going lactic and so on and so forth, right? You're not exceeding your capabilities and so on. So that's where the appropriate pace ranges are so important. That's why I have a video on here about a critical velocity based on what you run for the mile. Again, so this is my email address. People can reach out to me at any point in time. Multi-Kenny, that's the email you can send it to. Does that make sense? Hod. Critical velocity. It's a VO2 max component, but again, critical velocity is one of the things like tempos and threshold that's going to get you fit enough to hang longer in races. Okay, get you from wherever you're at in the back of the pack to the middle towards the front, and then you can tack on speed development on the back end of it to simulate what you're going to be experiencing in races. You can do 5 times a K at critical velocity, and then do 4 200s on the back end at mile pace, or 4 200s at 800 meter pace, or whatever it might be. It allows you to design the training in a way that simulates what actually happens in races. Okay, you're welcome. So, and take a look. I've got a video on here that talks about critical velocity, tempo, and threshold, and the differences between the paces. And I have a similar chart that I put out based on mile capabilities and so on. So you know exactly where I did it based on 2 mile, did it based on mile, did it based on 5K. So I kind of had an extensive breakdown on the training paces based on critical velocity as well. So, but it's important that you know about this stuff too. Like I said, it's important as a coach too. It's important to let athletes know that, you know, I try to set up a sensible program, but a program that allows athletes to believe that they can actually do something. We're here. We want to run fast. You want to set standards. We have to do stuff that other people are not doing. We have to do stuff that people don't think we can do, that you might not think we can do, right? But there's a reason why I do this type of stuff, so that people understand what it takes to get to that next level. You want to be a championship team? This is what we've got to do to be a championship team, right? That it's period. Bottom line, we want to run fast. This is what we need to do to run fast and stay healthy. You can go out there and just run balls out and the balls to the wall 400s, but that's only going to get you so far. And I'm not interested in, you know, having my athletes outkick people in the back of the pack. I want my athletes to outkick people in front of the pack. Okay, so all this type of stuff helps. Critical velocity, tempo, threshold helps you stay there, so that if you're outkicking middle distance runners at the end of the race, or you're outkicking distance runners at the end of the race, it doesn't matter. You'll be ready for both, right? So I want to thank you all for joining me. I hope this was helpful. If it did, if it was, hit the thumbs up and share this with other coaches and athletes and runners who you think this might benefit, right? And let them know about this channel. I want to help as many people as I possibly can. So I appreciate all yous. Go have a great weekend. If you raced yesterday, I hope it went well. Good luck for the rest of the season. I'll be back next Sunday. See you then. You're welcome. Multi-Kenny.